Welcome, everybody. This is the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us today. We greatly appreciate it. We're going to have some beer, some conversation, talk more about tariffs because that is a hot topic this
Yes.
week in our society. We all with that said, we're going to go live here with the podcast. If you have any comments or questions, please do drop them in the comments. We'd love to hear what you're drinking or what you're thinking about the articles we are covering. So, with that said, here we go. Welcome, everybody, to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thanks for hanging out with us this week and having a beer and some conversation. I am Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt, how's it going?
It's going pretty good, Tim.
Okay.
It's been a long week already. How you doing?
Yeah, good, man. Good. You had a big presentation at work, like a 3-rounder. How'd that go for you?
I think it went well. We closed it out. It was a group effort, and I think we did a good job. I think we delivered pretty well on all of it. I felt like I was coming to the end of what I had to give, and maybe at my high point may not have been the last one, but I brought it. I think it went well. Still, people
Good.
are
Good,
people
man.
are calling it a success. So
Well, then
yeah,
that's all that matters, man. Good deal.
yeah.
Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's kind of trippy looking outside and seeing the sun still being out, still trying to get used to daylight savings time.
Yeah, it takes me a while to adjust. It's weird how you can change the clock an hour and it feels like you're jet lagged from flying to Europe or something.
A whole
It's
new lease
crazy
on life.
stuff. Yeah, yeah. Fun times, fun times. Well, guys, let's dive into our beers of the week. Brian, what are you getting into this week?
Yeah, so I feel like enjoying some really fine beers, getting into some IPAs, a little bit of celebration ish going on. So I'm a little, maybe a little boozier today than I am on most days.
Okay.
But
All right.
I started off with something I found a single can of in a cooler this past weekend. It's a Weldworks Alani Double Dry Hop Juicy Bits, and I've never seen it before. And like I said, I found the one can and like, well, that one's mine. I'm drinking that. So it's a New England IPA, double dry hop with Citra, Mosaic, Eldorado, and Alani hops. And I think I like all those things. And it was quite good. It was that was what I pre-gamed with, so it was very, very citrusy. It was very, very much like a 4K resolution of drinking or enjoying an orange. Like it tasted the juiciness of the orange, but it's like you would just peel the orange, so you were smelling the skin of it too, the
The
oils of it.
pith
It
and
was like
all of that stuff.
and it might just have been because it was a long day and that tasted really good. Like it was exceptional. So I wish I had another one, but I have moved on to an Old Nation double dry hop Boss Tweed, which is a double IPA amped up with cryo hops, and it's good. I think this one's a little older. I got it out of a cooler, so I know it was kept cold, but I can actually taste it. It's a little long in the
Little
tooth. It's
age.
still good.
Yeah.
It's still good, but a little long. And at the end of things, maybe at the end of the show or hanging out with the Patreon folks, I will be getting into a microphone. Smells like Bean Spirit Decadence, which is the new 2024 release. I guess that's not that new anymore, but it's a breakfast stout with Colombian coffee, maple syrup, cocoa nibs, and cinnamon. So it's got all the stuff. And it's only 8%. It sounds bigger than it is,
Okay.
so it's not too crazy. I'm not getting laid out tonight, but I'm having a good time, Tim.
I was gonna say it did sound pretty heavy duty there. Your lineup for for a show taping. That's a lot. That's a lot of booze that you're hitting
Yeah,
there.
yeah, but I feel like I've earned it.
Okay, well that's good. Well, I've just got me a good old pilsner this week. I am sipping on the Creature Comforts Firestone Walker collaboration Peebo Pilsner, and very creative with the name there. As Creature Comforts does one called Bebo, and Firestone Walker has Peebo pills. So you see
It
how that
makes
worked out.
sense.
It's
Yeah,
magic there, but
and
enjoying that. Came in a long beer can, Brian, which I know you appreciate.
oh,
Very
nice.
And a
nice.
couple of really great breweries, man. So as
Yeah.
expected, this is a really good pilsner. Yeah, Nate, what are you sipping on?
So for my pregame, a little in-house crowd favorite, the spaghettis. It's you take a Miller High Life, you take a swig out of it, and you backfill it with lemon juice and Aperol. So that was my pregame, and then for the main event from Old Nation, I've got their B43, which is their Brute IPA. And Brian and I were talking in the green room a little bit about our Brute IPA days experiences, and yeah, so it's just nice to have a little nostalgia in my glass tonight.
I believe the overall sentiment is Brute IPA died so quickly due to people not brewing it properly and giving it a fair chance. Was that
I don't think,
your guys' opinion
I
on the
yeah,
100
subject?
I 100% lay the failure of the brewed IPA at the feet of the people who brewed a hazy beer and called it a brewed IPA.
Yeah.
You guys screwed this up. It is read the directions, read the description, not right. So every single one I ever had, with maybe one or two exceptions, was completely wrong, and nobody was into it. So
You know, if you're newer to craft beer, there's a good chance you totally missed the brewed IPA moment because it was very short lived. And what, 7, 8, 5, 5, 6, 7 years ago now when it was a thing?
yeah, 6 or
yeah, I
7
think
Yeah.
probably.
2018. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was a
So
real
if
flash in the
you're,
pan trend that came out of San Francisco, and I think people
yeah.
just never really fully understood the beer style.
So if you're new to craft beer again, you may have totally missed this, but the brewed IPA, it was supposed to, in essence, be reminiscent of like a sparkling white wine, a champagne, a super, super dry, bone dry finish is what the style guidelines say. Really high carbonation, should be almost effervescent in the way that it was carbonated. Very low hop bitterness. And I remember going to a brew pub here that is now since closed. But I ordered their brewed IPA, and this was the first time I'd seen one on a menu in Atlanta. And it was not a brewed IPA. And I don't recall what it was, but it was not a brewed IPA. And I said something to them. I was like, hey, I ordered the brewed IPA. They're like, this is the brewed IPA. And I remember that it was hazy. I don't think it was a hazy IPA. So I don't know. I don't recall exactly what they gave me, but it most definitely was not a brewed IPA. And I remember there was a brewery out of Chattanooga that did one that was pretty good. Brian, do you remember what the brewery name was? I bet you remember the beer I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think so. I think did we have it like Argosy or something like that? Because I
Yeah.
have this
Yep.
recollection of it wasn't Yazoo, was it?
No, it was one, and I think they've closed since as well. They were really popular for a while, and I'm just totally forgetting the name. But we had other breweries
Birds
that
Fly
tried.
South, maybe?
No, that's not. No, you're just throwing out names. You're not
Yeah, I
even
just threw it
getting
out there. I just knew
Chattanooga
they were
breweries
closed.
there. So
Okay, yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, everyone that came around, I don't remember having a very good representation by any of our local brewers that did them. And I think Nate, you said Dry County did one that was pretty decent. And again, another brewery that's closed. But yeah, we just didn't get much here. And I don't know if other places did, other than kind of the home of the brewed IPA. But people were a little opposed, or it was, I guess, it was a controversial style. And
Yeah.
people didn't much care for just the thought of it before ever trying them, but it never had a chance, guys. The Brute IPA never had a chance.
It probably didn't help that all the elite beer nerds immediately turned up their nose at it. I'm like, it seemed it became a laughing stock before anybody had ever even had it. I think had they not already been making fun of it, and I don't know what that stems from. I think conceptually a very cool idea still, and it makes me want to homebrew because I feel like I could find a way to make it right, and I think once I did, I would appreciate it. So.
Yeah. Okay. That's that. You know, there's certain things that I don't know if they should be called the diehard fans, because I think a true diehard fan would be open to things. For whatever you say, that once they hear something about something, they hate it already. And again, Brian, bringing our cologne habit into the thing, there's been cologne releases. When you release a cologne that is inspired by another cologne, or not inspired by, but Versace Eros, let's use that as an example. And then they have one called Flame, and they have one called Energy, and those are called flankers. When you release another one within the same series, they call them flankers. And there's certain ones that as soon as they're released, people hate them. And before even trying them, they're reviewing them poorly on the various, the fragrance equivalents of Untapped or Beer Advocate or something like that. And then a year later, people are like, you know what, this is actually pretty good. So, and I think beer gets some of that as well, that people hate before they have a chance to appreciate, Brian.
Yeah, yeah, and I think some of it stems from like the IPA went through a lot of like the new flavor of IPA, because around that time we had the smoothie IPA,
We
the
did,
stuff like the
yeah.
push pop IPA, where it was like, this is basically no longer beer. There's alcohol in it,
Mhm.
and it tastes great, but man, it's really not beer anymore.
I
It's
don't hear
not an
much hype
IPA
on
either.
those either. Really, there's nothing insane that I know of that's trendy right now. Sure, there's still people drinking their milkshakes and their slushies and all of that, but I just don't think it has the same pull that it did, a few years back.
The New England IPA seems to be, of all of craft, as far as I can tell, the one thing that has some staying power. The hazy, yeah, the other half, the Trillium, people are still drinking that. People still get excited when they see that. I've started seeing other half here. I don't know why it suddenly started showing up, but I'm buying it, and the stuff I'm getting is still in that style. I like it, and don't get me wrong, love the West Coast stuff too when I see it, when it's well made, but the most interesting stuff that's dropping regularly is New England IPAs of some iteration, some variation. So I don't know if they're hot anymore, but they get a lot of play. They get a lot of love still from a
Yeah,
lot of people
and
that still drink. So
things that are trendy and cool and all that, they get to a point, if they're popular, that they're just a thing. No, it's not trendy. It's just kind of, part of the it's just a beer, man. It's just another one, like a West Coast IPA or that. You wouldn't consider those trendy right now, even if really good ones are coming out. It's just Northeast IPA hung in there long enough that it's just kind of part of the rotation at this point.
yeah, I don't know if there is the hot new thing.
I don't know
Just
either.
thinking about it, like off the top of my head, nothing comes to mind.
I
I keep
haven't seen
hoping
anything recently.
I keep hoping that cask is going to catch on. I keep seeing little hints where people
Yeah.
are into lower carbonation and softer. And the article about the Alchemist with Hetty Topper being
Mhm.
hand pulled that came out, where somebody waxed lyrical about for 1,000 words about the beer and how it's such a great thing. And I'm like, are we seeing the beginning of cask becoming a thing? Because we need the next new thing, and we don't really have it right now. So I keep hoping, because I
Maybe
like it.
it's like me
Yeah.
calling Pilsners since like 2015 as being the next new thing. And then it took 4 or 5 years before it happened. Maybe that's your Cascales, Brian. Maybe you're 2 or so years into calling it being the next big thing. You just got to wait a few more years.
I'll just keep yelling about it, and
Yeah.
every chance I get, either people will start ignore me, or block me or something like that, or they'll actually go try it and decide it's a good thing. So
That's
see
the
how
old
it goes.
crazy Cascale, man.
If you say it long
Yeah.
enough, eventually it'll be right.
Maybe.
Yes.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Good luck, Brian. I hope they become the hot item for you, just for you.
Just for me. Thanks.
Just for you.
Appreciate that.
Well, moving right along, Brian, tariffs, man. We just cannot keep up with what the heck is going on with them. There's been crazy stuff thrown around, 25%, 50%, 200% retaliatory tariffs of that. So what is the latest that you know of? And this, in all honesty, we talked about tariffs on a show one time, and it changed from the time we recorded the show to the time we released the show. So
It did.
as of this taping, this is what we know.
This is what I know. So shortly, like you said, shortly after we talked about tariffs a few weeks ago, that story changed. It went from 25% tariffs were pushed back into early April. They were going to put them on Canada and Mexico. At least on Canada, that got pushed back into early April. Honestly, I hadn't seen anything about how the situation is with Mexico, but to be honest, it's hard to keep all of it straight. I've been looking through several articles this week trying to figure it all out, and we do know that at this point, President Trump is threatening to double tariffs on aluminum and steel imports from Canada, and taking them from 25% to 50%. The move, if it actually happens, would be in retaliation to the 25% surcharge placed by Ontario on electricity sent to the U.S. Trump has also recently threatened a 200% retaliatory tariff on alcohol imports from the EU if they impose a duty on U.S. whiskey. And the EU reportedly is planning to impose a 50% tariff on U.S. whiskey sold in Europe. I think it hasn't been applied yet, but I think it's like in the process of being applied. These tariffs, of course, it could be in effect by the time the show drops, or they could have gone into effect and then been delayed, like we've seen happening recently, or they might not happen at all. So everything we're telling you is as of just this moment. So, of course, should these tariffs go into effect, it will have a pretty significant impact on craft beer. According to Brewers Association, 75% of packaged beer goes into aluminum cans. And of course, there's kegs and brew houses to consider. So that's all your steel. Not to mention that all of your favorite Belgian beers are about to become ridiculously expensive. So in related news, something I just saw the other day, reportedly the brewer of Delirium and a few other things, I don't know how to say the names, like Hug Brewery. My Belgian pronunciation is awful. But anyway, they're sending a 6-month supply of beer to U.S. ahead of tariffs. Basically, every single bit of the stock they currently have in Belgium, they're sending to the U.S. before the tariffs go into effect, those 200% tariffs. And if the 200% tariffs are still in place when the beer runs out, they don't plan to sell anymore or send anymore because they don't think anybody will buy them at that price. Not because if they thought people would buy them, they would still sell them. But no, 200%, no. People aren't going to do that. The assumption is that the tariff won't still be in place in 6 months, that all of this will have worked out by then. I really wish that this tariff war wasn't basically being fought by punishing beer and whiskey of every country involved. Obviously, other stuff is involved, but it seems to me, and maybe it's just my perspective on things, so very specifically going after the things that I enjoy the most. I'm like, why me? Come on. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to hit a lot of stuff, of course, but it's unfortunate. This is just, this is just countries. Let's be honest here, Brian. We try not to be political, but it's our country trying to swing their Johnson around out there.
There's some Johnson swinging
and show how tough they are. And I understand these other countries are retaliating. Man, I'm proud to be an American, but we got some stupid stuff going on here right now. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. I know.
That's all we can do.
I know the current administration says that there's a purpose and it's going to benefit America in the long run. The economists say it's never worked in the past, so we'll see. I'm just sitting here and watching because, Brian, I'm too stupid to really know exactly how all this works. I'm not. So I just have to wait and see and pay more for everything until then.
Yes, basically. I don't know if we've ever lived in an era like I don't pay attention to like this kind of stuff, but where tariffs were driving the majority of the cost of everything. It's usually been like, how much are we getting taxed? Now it's how much tariffs are being applied to the things we buy. And I think in theory to lighten the load on actual taxes directly on us, but there's still taxes directly on us. They're just in a different way. So I don't know how that's going to work. I have no clue either. I'm not an economist. I don't play one on TV or on podcasts. I have no idea.
And I mean, outside of the actual tariffs themselves, the way it's impacting relations with other countries is very detrimental. There's a lot of places that are just not buying American goods already. There's websites set up to, hey, if you like this American product, buy something else. And this is what you can buy that's made here in our country, So there's a lot of unfortunate repercussions to all of this for the American people. And it's all being told to us that in the long run, it's going to strengthen America and the economy and jobs and wages and all that. But I'm not sure how we get to that point, man, or the pain that we have to go through to get there.
It's going to shake a lot of stuff up. And, well, we do talk about people drinking local. I think a lot more people will
drink local, man. Yeah. Drink local. Enjoy those American beers, man.
Yeah, it's like you might not have a choice.
Yeah, it's all you can afford. Would you like this local craft beer for $7 or this Belgian that is now $30 for a 12-ounce glass? So
that's like, hold on. What?
Let me think.
Where did that come from? Is that a Drew Fontaine? It's like, no, those are $830 for a 12-ounce glass.
Oh, no, this is our cheapie. This is our cheap Belgian beer.
This is just their lager. Like, that's
geez. Well, Brian, on the note of people doing things kind of in response to some of what's going on, Moosehead made a presidential pack.
Yeah, I was amused by this. It basically was, I think it was roughly time to come out with St. Patrick's Day, because it was a big green crate that they're calling a presidential pack they released. How big is it? This wooden crate that they released contains 1,461 cans of the brand's flagship Moosehead Canadian Lager. The number is significant because that's one can of beer for every day President Trump's going to be in office for his entire 4-year term. So one per day. The presidential pack was sold exclusively through the Moosehead website for a price of $3,490, or about $2.39 a beer. I said was sold because it sold out by the following Monday. So it was released on a Friday. It was gone by Monday. And that's with it only being available to a few Canadian provinces to order. And honestly, would have gone faster than that had the U.S. been able to buy it too. Moosehead was asked about the possible impact of tariffs on their business, and they said that 20% of their brand sales are to the U.S. So this is going to hurt them. On the bright side, they also expect the tariffs to encourage more Canadians to drink local beer, like we were saying. So they hope that the local increases will make up for any losses. And I say good luck to them. I don't know how that's going to work out. I don't know their demographics, but yeah, it's hopefully the local guys can make up for some of the losses, because there's probably going to be some.
What if this ridiculously all works out for literally every country and benefit? Like people start buying local, supporting local, their economies boom because of this, and the climate gets better because things aren't being shipped and trained and all this. And I'm like, look, I want to be wrong about I will happily be very, very wrong. So let's
will
see
be
what
surprised by that, but
let's see what goes down, man. Let's see what goes
in the
down.
whole concept of a like a multiverse scenario, which is very popular in movies these days, done to death. In fact, there is a reality where that in fact does happen, where everything works out because of tariffs and everybody's happy, and like, no, we don't buy anything from you, but everybody's so happy it doesn't matter. That. I don't know.
It's a man in the high castle situation, only positive kind of stuff, right? You familiar with that, Brian? The man in the high castle?
That's the one. Isn't that the one where the Nazis
where the Nazis
won,
won, and so it shows how the world would operate if China and Germany
Nazis, but happy.
Nazis. Nazis. So the Nazis are in charge, but they're good this time. They're good.
These are the good ones. Like the good ones, really?
The good Nazis. Are we the baddies? So
Jeez.
Well, Brian, let's bring some science into the discussion. This isn't bro science either. This is real legit science that has to do with beer. And it's a term that's been coined called hangxiety. And apparently science says this is a real thing.
Yeah. So if you've ever noticed feeling anxiety after a day of drinking, you're not alone. And that's called hangxiety. And it turns out that it's not all in your head. Well, it is, but it has to do with neurotransmitters and science and things like that, at least in part. According to a doctor quoted in a VinePair article I read, so this is totally legit, it works like this. And for the record, I got to say, because we're talking about medical stuff, I really should say this more often. I'm only a doctor of intoxicology. I'm not qualified to make medical claims, so this is not advice.
Fair.
I can tell you how to get hammered. I can't tell you how to fix your body. Anyway. So alcohol increases GABA, which is a calming neurotransmitter, and that leads to relaxation. That's why you feel laid back when you're drinking. But GABA levels drop off after alcohol consumption, and glutamate, which is an excitatory neurotransmitter, takes over. Increased glutamate levels can lead to feelings of anxiety. And on top of that, alcohol causes an initial spike in blood sugar, because there's a fair amount of sugar in beer, followed by a rapid decline. Low blood sugar triggers the body's fight or flight response, which causes symptoms like sweating and shakiness and increased heart rate and anxiety. So you've got two things at play there working to increase your anxiety. And if you're the kind of person who is naturally anxious and ruminates over things, it's going to end up being a little worse for you. And this is not mentioned in the article, but I suspect if you drink coffee by the gallon, like some people around here, I'm not naming any names, but it's me, that may make things even worse. Yeah, it's totally me. The good thing is with hangxiety, like a hangover, it's just temporary. You'll be back to normal in no time, probably. That's what they say. Again, I'm not a doctor, but it's not permanent. I've felt anxiety before, like general anxiousness after drinking, and enough to the point where I'm like, there's a connection between the two, and I didn't know there was a term for it. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed that kind of more anxious feeling. I know, Tim, you don't drink like that anymore these
Not
days,
any,
but
so I've had my overly fair share of hangovers before, and I, you know, I don't recall specific anxiety. You just don't feel good all around. And I wouldn't doubt that that's part of it. And there's been times, there's been times when I haven't necessarily been hungover, but I just felt wiped out. Maybe that was it, that I just had my GABAs down. And Brian, to throw out there, GABA, which is GABA, is
yes.
gamma aminobutyric acid. So that's what that is. And it does say it plays a crucial role in regulating brain activity and maintaining your balance. So,
Oh wow, okay.
so that's what that does. And homebrewers will know butyric acid, because that is an off flavor in beers. And I don't know exactly how all of these, molecules work and all that, like what makes it different being a gamma aminobutyric acid compared to regular butyric acid. But I'm very familiar with the last half of
I was
that
gonna say,
segment.
I think it probably. Who knows? I imagine it doesn't smell as bad. There are tablets you can
Maybe it
take for it
does.
that
Yeah.
will calm you down, and I've taken them before. I didn't remember them smelling like bile or whatever the butyric acid
Yeah.
does,
Kind
but
of a vomity smell.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, and it's mercaptan that has the dookie smell, right? That's the
I
off flavor
think so. I
mercaptan.
think so.
I remember that
Yeah.
because I have like mercaptan, my captain, which is
Mercaptan, my
terrible.
captain.
Yeah, a terrible way to
Awful.
remember it, but that's how I do.
Awful.
So, yes. Anyway, yes. I don't recommend that for the flavor, but and I don't recommend anything involving what you do with your health at all. So don't take
Yeah, Brian, no,
any supplements I talk
we'll
about
share some
at all.
stories with you, but just,
Yeah,
other than that, don't take any kind of advice from us as far
we're
as all of
guys who
that goes.
drink and talk about beer. Do not get medical advice from us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The thing is I've studied a lot. Study's not the right word. I've Googled a lot, like on nutrition and health and all that. So I actually do know a fairly decent amount and can answer some questions in a fairly well-informed way. But like, if I'm giving someone fitness or nutrition advice, they're going to be like, no, I'm not taking fitness advice from this guy. I'm like, that's fair. That's fair.
If I went into, and I haven't had a trainer or been into a gym in a long time, it's pretty obvious. But if I went into a gym and the trainer looked like me and was going to try to give me advice on how to get fit, I'd walk back out. I mean, honestly.
Yeah. So I went to the doctor a few years ago, and the doctor, he wasn't quite as big as me, but he was a chunky fella. He was a good sized fella. And he's like, yeah, he's like, you need to see if you can drop some weight. And he was kind of looking away. I'm like, you're a doctor. I know you got to say that, but I was like, you too, doc, you too. He's probably like, yeah. Then we saw each other at McDonald's a couple days later.
Just
So,
nod. Just,
yeah, but like, yeah,
yeah. It's like
gotcha.
neither of us should be here. I know, but just
Yeah, I'm
let's
getting a
pretend this
salad.
never happened. You get your thing, I'll get my thing. We'll go other directions. We'll never speak
Yeah.
of this.
I believe I've told this story on here before, but I went through the Wendy's drive-thru one time and I got a grilled chicken salad with just a grilled chicken breast on top of it, and I ordered through the drive-thru, and I get up to the window, and it's a older black lady working the window there, and she turns around, she's like, hey honey, it's 5:39. She sees me and she looks at the screen and looks back at me and she goes, you got the salad? And I'm like,
Oh,
what are you doing? I'm like, I'm trying here, and you're blown away. He's like, this dude, he didn't order a salad. He didn't order a
you
salad.
didn't
I
order
did.
that.
I did.
Just
Well,
slaps
Brian,
it out of your hand and gives you a
right.
Whopper.
She's
Oh,
like,
wait, that's the wrong thing.
look,
Yeah.
and I know that you wanted the fried chicken sandwich, not the salad. I'm like, yeah, but I got the salad. So, well, Brian, before we move on, let's give a shout out to our friends at Truck and Tap.
Yeah. So spring is finally here, which means we probably have 5 minutes left of mostly perfect patio weather here in the Atlanta area. In between, tornadoes and intermittent ice storms, but we'll have some perfect patio weather. So join me on the patio at your local Truck and Tap for a beer or two. And if you would like a recommendation on the beer, I have one for each location. At Truck and Tap Woodstock, I'm going with Boulevard's 35th Anniversary Ale because you have to get a significant beer like that. It's a blend of barley wine and brown ale aged in bourbon barrels. So this one's not messing around. It weighs in at 12.5%, which it's big. It's big. It's not as big as it could be in Georgia, but it's big. You got to give that one respect. At the Duluth location, I'm getting Open for Business from Perennial Artisan Ales. It's an Italian Pilsner with a good amount of Hellertau Blanc hops, and I always have trouble with that one. But apparently this is also a collaboration with Good Word Brewing. At least that's the indication, so you know it's going to be good. And I love an Italian Pilsner. I love a German Pilsner. I love an Italian Pilsner. I just like Pilsners in general. So this is a no-brainer. At the Truck and Tap Alpharetta, my pick is Yazoo's Pacific Pale Ale. It's a pale ale featuring Australian Galaxy hops. And I also like Galaxy hops. So that's really my entire reason for picking that beer. I'm going to get it because people used to make a big deal about Galaxy, and I don't see that in beers nearly as often as I used to. So
You don't see hype for it, at least. It's just in there quietly. Yeah.
Yeah. For a second, you couldn't get enough Galaxy, right? Like everybody was sold out of Galaxy everywhere. And so I guess
beers
everybody
would feature it in the name to make sure you knew that it was a Galaxy hop beer. And that not anymore, man. They're not shouting that one out as much anymore.
Yeah. So that is a good reason to get Yazoo's Pacific Pale Ale. But finally, at the Lawrenceville location, I'm going with Aphelion Fluorescence IPA. And I'm never sure if I'm saying the name right, but that's from Six Bridges. I like that line. And the Aphelion line, I think it's a whole thing. They're calling that a Cali-style double IPA with Eldorado, Azacca, and Bravo hops. And I do love a good West Coast double IPA for a long time. I love that before there was even a New England IPA. So I'm always going to be happy to get one of those. And don't forget to grab a little something from the food truck of the day while you're hanging out at Truck and Tap. You never know what it might be. Lobster rolls, tacos, barbecue. If only there was some way to know ahead of time. Oh, wait, there is. It's called the Truck and Tap website, truckandtap.com. Check it out for all the details about those food trucks, beer, events, and everything else. And thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Thank you, Truck and Tap. Well, Brian, after you spend a little time at Truck and Tap, and maybe you're going to do some vacation planning while you're there. You're going to sit down at Truck and Tap. You're going to have something to eat and drink, and you're going to plan your vacation. Well, now there is a new destination that you might include in your planning, and that is Corona Island.
Corona Island, yes. I saw this and I had to include it. It's far too wild. But if you're looking for an ecotourism vacation on a tropical island with beer, of course, you're in luck. AB InBev's Corona Island is now open to the public. Apparently, it's been a thing for a number of years, like 4 or 5 of them, but it was invite only for the longest time. So now it's not. It's a real island, 12 miles off the coast of Colombia, and it's only accessible via boat. The island offers an all-inclusive overnight stay in their 10 beachfront bungalows nestled in the jungle, which are powered by solar energy. And, of course, the guests will be able to enjoy the full suite of Corona products. There is a suite of Corona products.
Okay,
I was unaware of this, but there is. And in addition to lounging around and drinking Corona, the resort also offers eco-friendly travel experiences that you can embark on from there. If you're interested in staying at Corona Island, you can book your bungalow at many of the common travel websites for around $600 a night. Not too expensive, right? For
not too cheap either, but I mean, I guess if you got a bungalow on a private island, that'll cost you a bit. Yeah,
and I'm wondering how much Corona is built into that, or if the Corona is on top of the charge for that. But if you want to
all inclusive here, let's talk. What does my $600 get me? Because
actually, if you get a case of Corona for every night you're staying, I'm like, I mean, that's not $600
included in that.
Oh, they could be.
All right,
I think I think they do feature, if they can make it with local ingredients, they try to make local-ish ingredients. Obviously, there's not enough room on the island for there to be a lot of local ingredients, but I think they're bringing stuff in from Colombia and other places to make the food and the drink. So a lot of that is featured. But I guess that figures into the 600 per night. But you can also just hang out there if you want to. They sell day passes for $200. Again, I don't know what the $200 gets you. Maybe that gets you a bunch of Corona. Maybe that's just to cover whatever your excursions are or the maintenance fees for keeping up the island. So Yeah, so that's an
All
option for
right.
you.
I saw something one time about like there's a company or probably more than one that like they specialize in selling people private islands. And I'm not saying that they're cheap, but depending on the location you want in that, they're cheaper than you may think, to buy
Really?
or well, not all of them, some, I should say. And that's likely the smaller islands in non-prime tropical locations, but if you just decided, you know what, I don't want anybody to be able to drive up to my house. I don't want the Jehovah's Witness or, or folks knocking on my door. You could do that. And I think probably about, if I remember right, they had some 13, 14 grand or something. Maybe
Really?
that may not even be big enough to live on at that amount, but these are like hey, this is in the middle of a sewage pond in Detroit, but it's only 13 grand, maybe not that bad.
But I have a storage shed on it, so I do have a
Yeah.
place and a single chair and
Yeah.
a little table where I can put like an ashtray and my cooler. So
Brian, you and I both have battery backup generators that are solar
yeah.
powered. So
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
So we're good. We're set on the island, man. We can go out there. I don't know if we'd be able to power a TV. We may need to buy a bigger one than what we've got to make that happen. But,
probably yes,
but
or a
yeah.
few more or something.
Do they
I
make
don't
a
know.
solar powered TV? Get the
Oh,
that
we
out
need
there?
to we need to
Yeah.
work on this. This needs to be a thing because I
See,
mean, if the power goes out, how are you going to keep up with your shows?
yes, exactly. We'll work it out. We've got details to work out, but the plan is laid in motion there. So Brian and I are going to go together and buy a cheap tiny island. So we'll keep you posted. We'll keep you
Pure
posted on the
Guys
progress there.
Island.
Yes, yeah, man. Start a little resort, and our price will be it'll be like $32 a day, all inclusive. And
That's right.
but all inclusive is like we'll just have some bags of rolled gold pretzels and like a cooler of beer. But we're happy to share that with you.
We'll probably have at least a folding chair for you because you'll need
Yeah.
someplace to like sit and possibly lay out a bit.
Right.
So we'll do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it'll be very exclusive, man. Like only 2 people at a time because we won't have enough beer for any more than that.
You'll be there with us the entire time, like
Yes.
next to us. So
That sounded like a threat almost, Brian.
You know where we make the money is when they try to leave. We just say, "Now you can't leave."
Now
and
you
then they have to pay us, and then they can leave. Yeah,
32. Oh, they're like, man, that's great. $32 a day to spend. Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah, but a departure visa, that's $500.
Yeah.
that's right.
For the price of a Belgian beer, you can hang out with us
That's
on
right.
That's
That's
our
right.
island.
So 1 pint of Belgian beer.
That's
So,
right.
oh gosh, good stuff, Brian. Big beer news, acquisition news. Founders Brewing is now 100% owned by Mahu San Miguel.
Yeah, San Miguel. I think it's Miguel. I don't know. Now I'm
That
unsure.
wasn't the part that I was questioning.
Oh yeah, that is true. What you have just said. They acquired the last 10% of Founders. So Mahu San Miguel owns 100% of Founders Brewing Company now. And the financial terms of this transaction were not disclosed that I could find. But Mahu San Miguel first became an owner of Founders back in 2015. You might remember that because at that point in time, I think there was discussion about whether or not they were craft because they bought a percentage that exceeded what the limit of the craft definition was at the time. And I don't remember if they bought 25% when it was only 20%, or maybe they bought 33% when they could only have 30%. I don't know what it was, but anyway, then in 2020, they became a majority shareholder, owning 90% of the company. And around that time, they also became a majority shareholder in Avery. I don't know that they own 100% of Avery, but I'm not sure that they don't, honestly, at this point in time. So apparently buying up the last 10%, the reason they did this is it gives them a better position in the quote unquote craft beer sector, which will enable Mahu San Miguel to gain market share access across all channels, basically. So, and that's craft beer in quotes, in case you missed the quote unquote part, because Founders hasn't been actual craft beer since well before 2020. And by the time they were 90% owned by Mahu San Miguel, they weren't. And I don't think that the definition has shifted enough to let them in, even at the 90% mark. So that's interesting. And there's not been a lot of fanfare about this, but also I think founders lost a lot of love when they had some really big controversies years ago. So that's part of it. People are not that interested in how they fare at this point in time, unfortunately. So
Yeah, not as
yeah,
much interest there for sure. And that's
yeah,
I think I had forgotten that they already had 90%. I assumed when I saw that they purchased the remaining stake that it would have been larger than just 10% because that seems they're like that. Let's just get, it's only 10%. Let's just go ahead and get the rest of this thing.
yeah. And honestly, when I saw the same thing, thought the same thing when I saw this. I'm like, they already had 90%. Maybe this
Yeah.
was. I mean, this happened in 2020 that they did this. So we had other things happening in 2020 that were slightly distracting. So we may have completely
Yeah,
missed that this
could have been.
happened. You know.
Yeah, I think I remember them saying that they took a majority stake, but I don't recall if I ever saw that it was 90%. And let's be honest,
Yeah.
I mean, 51% would be majority, technically speaking, right? So,
Correct. Yeah.
yeah, and like Tyler's comment here, their beers are still good. I mean, I still enjoy, several that they do there. But I don't seek them out like I used to either. And we even see at one time when Canadian Breakfast Stout released, literally, Brian, mentioned this before. We have a bar here in Atlanta that would tap a keg of Canadian Breakfast Stout on Christmas Day, open at like 5 o'clock, and
Yeah.
it would be packed on Christmas Day with beer nerds
Yes.
that wanted to get that. And we had a friend join us for Christmas dinner one time that was a beer drinker, but not so much a beer nerd. And when we said, "Hey, when we're done with dinner here, we're going to go to the bar for that," and when we got ready to go, he's like, "Oh, you guys are serious?" We're like, "Oh yeah." Oh yeah, absolutely. And now we're to a point to where you'll see Canadian Breakfast Stout sitting on the shelf when it comes around, and
Yeah.
even taking it down a notch from that, like their breakfast stout or that came around. There was a time when we couldn't get our hands on that, and that one is on the shelf pretty regularly anymore.
Yeah, the good old KBS when you had to chase a truck to get it, that
Yep.
inspired us to get into homebrewing, which
Sure did.
kind of led to this show. So that particular beer, yeah, it's kind of a shame, but that's how things go. At the time, there was nothing else like it. Now everybody can make something like it because craft beer has expanded that much. And yeah, it's interesting to see all this. And I had no idea that 90% was where they were at, but the the comment that they had taken a controlling interest in it, I do recall that. So I think
Yeah,
that they
me
kept that
too.
quiet because that's bad press. So saying majority stake and not saying how big the majority is made people think, you know what, they're still crafty-ish, for the people who still cared at that point. And I don't know by 2020 if people really still did. And at this point, I'm honestly not convinced anybody really. I don't see people debating the term anymore, really. Like for the most part, people just drink whatever beer that they're into, and a lot of the macro brews are very popular these days with people who had formerly, basically turned up their nose at them in the past, and now they appreciate them. The good ones, the ones that are well made for what they are, and they are well made lagers typically. So,
Yeah, I just don't think people. It's definitely not as vocal as it was in the past, and there's people that drink that definitely still, want to drink their craft and go for craft, and they avoid big beer. I do to a certain extent, Brian. Um I was never hard line stance on that. At time there were certain breweries, and really for me it came down to the brewery, what the brewery
yeah,
was. And we had a few breweries here locally that either a portion or the total brewery sold the big beer and still supported them. We knew people that worked there. We knew the people
sure.
that founded the companies. We knew the people that worked there and that. So, that was kind of, that was something that I just took it case by case. I didn't hardline stance on it.
There was a period of time where I had real issues with buying anything from Goose Island, but I really don't anymore. I just don't, except for the occasional Bourbon County brand stout. For the most part, I've loosened up on that stuff because it's it's fine.
It's
It's
like,
no longer.
why? Yeah.
Well, the thing is at one point in time, it was Big Beer was trying to buy out and destroy craft beer for their own profit, and now they're trying to divest a lot of that stuff. So right now, just buying beer is, if you will drink a beer, that's a good thing for beer in
Just buy
general.
beer, man.
Just
Just buy beer.
buy and enjoy some beer. That's where we're at.
Drink local. Yeah, drinking local is great. Just drink beer, man.
But just drink beer.
Drink
Yeah.
beer right now. Makes sense. That's a solid philosophy you got there.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Good stuff. Well, Brian, St. Patrick's Day was last weekend. We got out and celebrated a little bit before a horrible storm came through the Atlanta area, but we got to hit a pub that was very greened up, and they had Reubens and they had the corned beef and cabbage and all that, and they had pints of Guinness. Most importantly, I got an old black and tan, and you got a variation of that, right?
The blacksmith. Yes, I got. That's the Smithix and Guinness. It took me a second. Kind of a red ale. When you look at it, even when I took the picture, because the lighting was low, you don't really see the differentiation. But in good lighting, you can see it's red, black on top of red, and it's a really, really well done blending of beers. I think it's my favorite of the half and halves.
The half and halves. Good stuff.
Yes.
Well, speaking of Guinness, Brian, Singapore set a Guinness World Record recently.
Yes. Speaking of Guinness, so in case you didn't know, there is an official Guinness World Record for the highest microbrewery in a building, which seems very specific. And this month, Singapore's Level 33 Brewery claimed that title, and Level is spelled interestingly with a uppercase V and L and the number 33 at the end of it. So anyway, you can Google it. The brewery is 489.89 feet off the ground, because they have to measure these things precisely, or it's 33 floors above Singapore's central business district. And they have a deck with a pretty impressive view that I gathered from the pictures that they had with the article. It has taken them nearly 15 years to claim this record. The brewery opened back in 2010, but the important question is how is the beer? After seeing this article, I'm like, well, this is really interesting. How's the beer? I've never been. I've been to Singapore, but when I visited, they weren't there. So according to Untappd, the brewery has a rating of 3.27 based on 9,945 votes. So that's not a lot of people that have visited, but it's also not an amazing rating. Their most popular beer is their 33.15 IPA. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but it's an English-style IPA, which you don't see English-style IPAs around very often anymore either. And it has a similar rating of 3.25, which seems kind of low for an IPA based upon my experience. So I'm just kind of hazarding a guess here, but I think there's a chance that the view is a bigger pull than the beer. But I think congratulations to those guys nonetheless, because I saw pictures. They had to lift the brew house up the side of the building with a crane to get it in there. So 33 floors up, and they're brewing beer there. That's pretty cool. I would go purely to go there and check out a place that's that high off the ground brewing beer. It's a Guinness World Record holder, and the patio looks nice. So that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, that's not a good rating, man. That's not a good rating.
No.
That's it. So it doesn't sound like they're nailing the beer. Good for them for being so high up, though.
Would you go to a place like that if they were here in Atlanta and they were 33 stories up, but they had a balcony you could hang out on that overlooked Atlanta, but they had what you heard was mediocre beer? Would you go?
Is there an elevator? Or like, I know in a lot of those Asian countries, you see like they're carving steps into the side of a brick wall, but this says business district. We're not like a mountaintop brewery here, right?
Well, I mean,
yeah, I'd go for if you've got some kind of cheesy draw, and this is probably why they're trying to do this, Brian, because I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. If you're like, look, we've got the world's biggest cheese curd here, I'm like, I got to see that cheese curd,
Yes.
So, I'll go. If you've got some kind of shtick that sets you apart, sure, I'll go check it out once. I may not go back again, but, I'll go check it out for sure.
Yeah, the elevator only goes up to the 30th floor. You have to crab walk upstairs for the last three floors.
I'm out.
Okay, you're
out. I'm out. I don't care how big that cheese curd is. I'm out.
But it's a huge cheese curd, and it's got
I'm
gold
back
dust
in.
on it.
I'm back in. I'm back in, man. How about you? Would you go?
crab walk up there. No, I would without having to do all that, and I'd probably try the crab walking just because that's ridiculous. But
just to see.
I would know. I look at the balcony. I'm like, I would totally go there. I would check that out. Apparently the food is really good. And they've got a fancy chef, so I think maybe they don't have. I don't know. I'm not sure with the beer side of things. I'd go check it out, and if the beer wasn't great, but the food was, I'd just go there and eat and maybe have water and enjoy the view. So I definitely check it out. I would try some of the beers because I would be interested in. Man, it's been a long time since I've been to Singapore, and I would like to see what they're doing with beer. I'm like, they're doing English IPAs. I'm like, I haven't had an English IPA in years, so I'd check it out. I mean, it's probably not going to be my thing, but yeah, why not? It looks like a good time at least once.
Yeah. So our friend Bill Boyer chimed in and said he's tried the beer from that brewery, that a friend brought some back to Atlanta and they had some of the boss share. He said it's okay though. But then he also said that the world's biggest cheese curd sounds disgusting because of the ratio. You've got a poor breading to cheese ratio. I'm not saying it would be edible, Bill. I'm saying it would be a sight to behold there. So
I don't think they'd want people to eat it because once people eat it, you couldn't.
It's no longer the biggest.
Again. Yeah,
unless they spin it into one of those eating challenges that they have there. How fast can you eat the world's biggest cheese curd?
We've got a.
Do have a fancy chef.
Yeah,
a 600-pound cheese curd. How fast can you eat it?
I'm gonna need a week or so. Probably a lot more than that. Actually,
probably.
Hopefully, a lot more than that.
Yes.
Yeah, well, Brian, here's some news that came out. Shocking news. And this has been something that's bounced around for many years, but craft beer drinkers still would like to see expanded direct-to-consumer shipping of their beverages.
Yeah, and we've definitely talked about this before, and probably around this time last year. According to a Sovos Brewers Association survey, 83% of craft drinkers still want expanded direct-to-consumer shipping. And when they say craft drinkers, they mean anyone who drinks craft beer at least once a month. So that's casting a huge net. That's like anybody who drinks beer at this point. Additionally, 64% of all legal drinking age U.S. consumers said state laws should be expanded to allow direct-to-consumer beer shipments. And they don't say it, but because they're adults. Anyway, this is the 5th time they've done this survey, and I believe the results have been about the same every time, though this year the numbers are slightly down from 86% and 68% respectively. So a few percentage points dropped. That might be within the margin of error, like we saw with some previous surveys that have been done year after year. But at the moment, there are 12 states where direct-to-consumer beer shipments are allowed. But for some reason, there are 47 states and the District of Columbia that allow direct-to-consumer shipments of wine. So 12 states for beer, or maybe less than 12, actually. 47 plus 1 states for wine. What's going on there? That's weird. Anyway, the survey also found that 76% of regular craft drinkers said they would increase their purchases of craft beer if direct-to-consumer shipping was available to them. So this will help beer. If you let people buy the beer they want, they're going to buy more of it. And I can't think of who might be opposed to this. Oh, yeah, I can. The people who want to make a nickel off of every transaction. Oh, the distributors. And by a nickel, I mean a lot more than a nickel.
Who would be, when you told me about this, Brian, I'm like, what's up with that 17% that doesn't want that? And here's a guess I'm going to throw out with that is you've got some people that aren't big drinkers, but maybe they like to go to the pub or a brewery on the weekend and they just don't care. They're like, hey, would you like to be able to get beer shipped directly to you? They're like, no, I don't. No, I like to go out and have a beer. I don't care about that.
It's a fair point.
That could be 17% there.
I think that there's a good 15 to 25% of people who just don't understand the question when they're asked.
What was the question?
And they could be because they're drunk and they just say, oh, no, man, I'm good. I don't need you to send me this beer. I'll order it from that guy. He's got the beer that I want.
As long as they'll deliver it to my table.
That's not what we asked him. Like, no, I'm good. That you have my answer. Go away now. I'm drinking, That's what
How many beers had they had before they asked them the question is one thing, because that could definitely have impacted it as well.
I'm sure a few.
Interesting, man.
Yeah.
Crazy world out there. Tariffs, giant cheese curds. I think that was in our news this week.
Yes.
Founders is now 100% owned by Mahou San Miguel. It's just a crazy, crazy world. But y'all, with that, we are out of time for this week. Once again, we appreciate you hanging out with us. We hope you've had a good time. If you enjoy what we do here, we would love for you to tell a friend to tune into the show or come join us for our live stream. I don't think we ever talk about the live stream on the podcast, but when we record the show, it's Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, and we stream it across pretty much any place that'll let us stream video. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. I think we're on Twitch. Twitch, LinkedIn, X, Twitter, all that. So pretty much if there's anywhere you can watch a live stream, we're out there. Yeah, GeoCities, we're out there.
Was it Angel Fire? Was that one
Angel
of the places?
Fire? Yeah. Come
AOL Online.
Hang out and chat with us. Let us know what you're sipping on. If you really like what we're doing, we'd greatly appreciate it if you supported us on Patreon. We will send you some cool swag and we'll invite you to the Discord server to hang out and talk about beer and other ridiculous stuff. With that said, we hope that you all have a really great week. With that said, we hope you all have a really great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers. I've got to rename these sound files, so I quit clicking on the wrong ones. On those.
Just delete it.
I have to, put some gaps in between there. I'll just put this one stupid. That's what I'll rename the file. That'll help me there. Good stuff. Well, y'all, thanks so much for hanging out with us. We really, really appreciate it. Bill Boyer, good to see you, man. Good to see you. Thanks for chiming in, Tyler. Always a pleasure to have you hanging with us, man. But we're going to put the link over in the Discord server for the after party. Please do, if you're a Patreon supporter, come on over, have a beer with us, and let's BS a little bit. But y'all have a good week, and we'll see you next week.